Ask and you shall receive, Roach. Ask and you shall receive. How's everyone doing tonight? Who's here? Roach. Roach is drinking Sprite. Excellent. Nikki. Alexis. Hello, hello. Welcome in. Molly. Good evening, everyone. So, I made a list of things that we mentioned yesterday, and I started the starting soon screen, and then I forgot. So I had to run down and grab some of these things to get the party started. Mainly, the first thing here is my museum kit. I guess we can swap to full big camera for right now. Hello. Oh, you weren't here, Roach. We missed you, but that's okay. None of it was super integral. It was just things that we talked about yesterday that I was like, oh, that'll be easy to go talk about tomorrow. So one of the things that we brought up a little bit was my museum kit. So, like I said, it's just a pencil case that holds all of my little bits and bobs for when I go traveling around. And we can poke through some of this other stuff. But the thing that we were... Oh, we're in an ad. We'll wait. Ten, 9, 8. Mini Pearl. Hello. And we're back. So yesterday we were looking at and identifying a bunch of specimens. Aster, hello. Welcome in. We were identifying a lot of specimens, and I said how I was talking about how it was easier to flip the specimens over and check different things just holding them in my hands. But then I mentioned the foam or the clay, any of that sort of stuff that will hold the pin to make viewing easier. And one of the really neat things that people have come up with is a specimen manipulator, so something that will hold your bug, and you'll be able to turn it and flip it and whatever, made out of Lego. So I am a big Lego fan in general, but inside my museum kit, I have the components for this little thing that gets put together. So it breaks down, and then I just click it together like this. Nope, I'm missing 2 pieces. I lied. Okay. Digging for treasure. Dark background in there was hard to find these pieces. So, assembly still roughly the same. Click these in to give it a little bit of height. And then click this side in to give you this nice little square base. That this piece right here in the middle, it's just a blue Technic pin, but I've shoved some little bits of foam in there so you could actually have it hold the specimen. Um, and so the idea with this, Coca, hello, hoya. So the idea here is you have the specimen. It's in that little piece of foam now, and I would be able to put this under the microscope. But instead of grabbing it out and flipping it over, because this thing is hinged, I'm able to fully rotate it. So now I'm looking at like the underside of the insect, and it can go most of the way around. Not a full 360, but it can go most of the way around. But then the other really cool thing is this piece over here is connected to this gear in the middle. And so when I spin this, watch the weevil. It's not the most efficient gear ratio, but like it spins. Portable for $4. That's sick. Um, so the combination of all of that, right, is I can get whatever angle that I want. I can flip it upside down and I can turn it so I can see like certain pieces, um, move things out of the way if I need to take images and whatnot. So I don't I don't love this. It's a very cool thing and it's a very helpful tool when I am traveling and when I need it, but it's just almost always easier for me to just hold the specimens while I do that. For kids and focus. Hey, start somewhere. That stuff's cool. Maya had one of those like those little kid ones that you just put on stuff, so good place to start. What other fun goodies are in here? I have my scissors. So, this is my travel kit, like I said, and I have been to over 30 museums now across the U.S. and Canada. Um, and part of what I'm doing is going to be identifying things for these other museums, right? I go in with my expertise and I can go, yes, this is X, Y, or Z ground beetle. And to cut out those labels, I have this little pair of pruning shears that, shockingly, these are allowed on an airplane. Um, the rule for flight is that the blade can only or the blade can't be longer than 4 inches from pivot to point. And I think that's kind of a crazy rule because most normal pairs of scissors, uh, most like regular full size pairs of scissors are like 3.85 to 3.9 inches. And so you can most of the time take a full pair of scissors on a plane according to like the textbook definition of what they say. It's always asterisked and like up to the individual security agent or whatever. But I have the policies screenshotted in case there are any issues. These I'm not as worried about. These are not that expensive. But I went to a class a couple of years ago, and this was during my master's, so it was at least like 6 years ago. Um, and I was going to a class on rove beetles, and rove beetles are very tiny. They said high quality forceps. So I bought some pretty expensive forceps to make sure that I was going to be able to um, do all of the dissections and stuff that I needed. And I was going to be so pissed if they confiscated my forceps before I had the chance to use them. So, um, I have always kept like their policies pulled up and like ready on my phone in case anybody gave me any hassle. But I've now traveled all over the place with this, and I'll hand carry it when I'm driving somewhere. But yes, I have flown with this, and it has never, knock knock on wood, thankfully, been a problem. Yeah, ready to actually. That's so real. I also travel with pinned specimens a lot, which is like a really crazy one. Um, I have the Schmidt boxes. So this is another typical way that people will store insect specimens, like not in drawers, but these are for travel. Ta-da. So this is just working stuff. This is stuff from Arizona when I went back that I haven't had a chance to label yet. But this size of box, I bought the backpack that I have because it can hold 3 of these. Um, and you can pack a lot of specimens into a box like this. So I typically only ever take one. But if I'm going to a course specifically where I need to bring reference material, or I'm bringing material back, uh, you bring them in those boxes. And TSA is like, going through the x-ray, they're like, what the fuck is that? And so when I started, I had never traveled with them before, and I was like very worried about uh, getting stopped, or even worse, like having my specimens taken. Um, so when I first started traveling with them, I would have those boxes, and I would pull them out of the backpack, send them through like the x-ray thing on their own, because it is like a bunch of little metal pins, right? Like it could flag. And the idea with that was like, I'm putting it out, they'll see it, they know I'm not like trying to hide anything. But then I would also have carrying notes, essentially, like, so letters from my advisor that are like, these are museum specimens, scientific value only, no commercial value, dead, not endangered, blah blah blah, whatever. And so I've gotten really good at that spiel of going, what's in the box? And it's like, dead insect specimens of no commercial value for scientific research. And they go, uh, okay, I guess. Um, and I've never had a problem. Since then, I just keep them in my bag. And if they ever say anything, it's, I have the receipts, I have everything that I know that I can get through with them. But I don't take them out of the bag anymore. The one time they did get flagged, and I was waiting for them to like pull my bag out. It had been pulled off to the side, and I was standing there waiting with all of my tattoos, and the back of my laptop has like all these bug stickers on it. And the TSA lady who was like standing there, she goes, "So you like bugs, huh?" I was like, "What gave it away?" Which one of the many things could have possibly tipped you off for that? So yeah, I've never had any trouble with it. It does get interesting traveling internationally with things, because you need import and export permits and all that other sort of stuff. But traveling within the US with insects is very, very easy. Um, no, no need to worry about that. So, what else do I have in my bag of tricks? The first is a circle. Now, this is not a high tech piece of equipment, but it is probably one of my favorite things. This is a rolled up piece of phone book that I have then taped the sides on. This is another thing that can hold specimens. So you can just, pop stuff in here. If you're sorting, you're like, oh, I need to move these 3 around, so I'll put them over here. Hello, Afton. But it's also like the perfect height for pinned specimens. So if I'm pinning things, I can push the insect all the way down onto the top of the surface here. But there's like the teeny tiniest point of the pin. You can sort of see it there right in front of my finger. The little smallest bit of the pin sticking out the bottom. So this is very helpful to like gauge how high up the specimens should go. And it's also a very nice solid surface for putting labels on things. So with the labels and any sort of paper, so it could be points too, the paper wants to bend and form and things like that. So you need to make sure your pins are sharp, but there's also a sturdy thing underneath, because if you're just using like soft foam or styrofoam, sometimes the pressure from the pin can cause the label to like bend up instead. So this little piece of phone book is nice and sturdy, and you can put your labels on. Did I invent this? No, God, no, I did not. I didn't invent the Lego thing either. That was published in like a scientific paper. This phone book trick, I don't know who's done it, but I have seen these around my lab since I started undergrad. I have had to make more, though, which is getting harder and harder because nobody has phone books anymore. But essentially what you do is you take the phone book and you take it to like a magazine printing thing or like a Kinko's, somewhere that does paper cutting. And you have them cut it into like 1-inch strips. And then you roll it up tightly and then tape the edges to make it like this. Some of the bigger phone books, you can get them where these discs are like, I don't know, probably like 2 or 3 times this. But this is a nice small one that I keep in my museum kit for traveling. A lot of the travel stuff is like materials that I would use at home, but more compact for going places. Like this, for instance. I don't know if I have my real one out. I don't see it. That's annoying. But this is my travel pinning block. So this is another thing. This one's 3D printed. It's nice and skinny, so it doesn't take a while, but there are these 4 holes here that will correspond to these different heights on this block. And so the idea is that each one of these blocks, each one of these holes has a different purpose with the insect specimen. So through the first hole here, you would push the specimen down all the way, and so this gives you the proper height for the specimen on the pin. And then your next hole, crazy. The next hole is for the height of the label. So you put the pin through and then you push it all the way down so that pin is hitting that next step. And now there's a very nice height on your label. And then you've got 2 other label heights, essentially, for like a digitization label and then maybe an ID label. But this keeps all of your labels the same height across all of your specimens. And this isn't something that I use so much in a museum, mostly because those typically, when you're identifying them, are already labeled. But it does help if I have to take labels off of something that I can have something to easily put them back on. And this is a product that I'm looking for my good one. It should be on my desk here somewhere, and I'm like, I can't find it. But the good ones that I have here are metal. They're like just like a solid little brick. Um, because you want it heavy so it's not getting pushed around and whatnot. But this saves the convenience. You're able to actually move stuff around quite easily. Then we have my little business card case. This is one of the most important things I think that I take with me when I go. Let's not docs here. So it has my actual business cards in it. So obviously you're getting the back. But these, if they need to contact me or if they need to do, I don't know, any sort of follow up, I have business cards in here that I can give out. But then the other thing that I keep in here are my identification labels. And the business card holder is just a really nice small form factor, so they don't, so the labels don't bend and get all gross or whatnot. And so these are the ID labels that I would write on with my little special pens to basically say, like, yes, I'm the one who is saying this is what this species is, and putting them on the specimens. I go through a ton of these, and so the other, like, super nice thing about this specific pair of scissors is that basically one snip of the scissors is the perfect width of a label. And so it's very nice to just be able to cut these out and, you know, slap one on a specimen when you need to. So again, same sort of supplies as at home, just more optimized for travel. Then I have my trusty piece of foam. Again, this is sort of for holding specimens. I prefer this to line up multiples. So if I have like 5 or 6 things that I think might be the same thing, that I need to check all of the thanks for the follow. Welcome in. If I have a couple things that I need to flip upside down or whatever to check things on the underside, I will often line them up on this piece of foam like this. And yeah, it's nothing special. It's just there. But Paula, hello. There's that. This next one, I think we can switch. These next two, I suppose, we can switch back to microscope cam. Put that back up there. Click it. Nope. Click that. Go small again. And there we go. Okay. So this next one is another unreasonably expensive piece of equipment, but is super, super helpful. There we go. Okay. So this is the little handle. Then it gets real skinny. And then at the very end, there's this little spatula. And what this is a very tiny ruler that you can hold up against the specimens. There we go. to hold up against the specimens to get measurements of different body parts. So if I had, this is also in the kit, this blue kind of floppy ruler. This is okay for getting full body things, but if you really get into the weeds of identification, sometimes it's like the length to width ratio of the pronotum. So you need to know how long or how wide and how long it is. And doing that with the ruler is a little bit cumbersome because you're going to be, getting all of this stuff in there that you could knock the specimens over with. So this thing, this little spatula, has saved me on many occasions because you only have like a little 5mm ruler here. Each one of these divisions of like the big lines is a millimeter. So I have this to make measurements. I don't use it that often, but it is super helpful when I do need it. And this little thing, check the face cam. This little thing, $75. So thankfully, I've only needed to buy it once. And could I make this myself if I needed a replacement? Probably. So that that will be the plan if I ever lose this, but we're going to try to keep a hold of this as long as we can because it was expensive. Another fun tool, this guy right here, hard and heavy. Come on, focus for me. Glacial, what is up? We are looking at we're looking at tools. I have the Lego specimen thing that we were talking about yesterday, and now I'm just talking about some of the other things that I keep in my traveling museum kit. So this is like a nice metal handle on this tool that is called a pin vise. So right here in the end, this is just a bent insect pin. And the head of this tool has that same, the chuck that like a drill would. Can make this large again. Cut. There we go. So in the top here, you can spin that and it holds, you can loosen it and take the pins out, change the sizes or whatever. Like that, you can have it out of the thing. And then just to tighten it down, you just screw the head back down and it'll grip onto whatever you insert in here. You can use these with dissecting needles, but I really like these. You kind of go through holding it like a pen so you can just scrape off your don't need that. This is really helpful if there is gunk. I know yesterday we were looking at some specimens that were a little bit dirty. This helps to scrape off some of that, sort of like a dental cleaning tool, which is what it really feels like when you hold them like this. It's also helpful for moving legs and things like that out of the way. If you know what you're doing, you can sometimes, like, if you need to move a leg to see something underneath the specimen, if it's newer or if you really know what you're doing, you can oftentimes pull that leg in a certain direction and it won't actually break off. It'll just release at that joint. So this is helpful to be able to go in and like hook a leg and pull it down if I needed to. The last thing that's not like a, I guess, regular piece of equipment that people might be familiar with are these pinning forceps. So they're obviously a lot thicker than your normal things. Like these are not your needle nose fine ones. They spring back, when you open them, and these are for working with older collections. Back in the day, the base or like the bottom piece of the insect drawer would oftentimes be cork or some other like fairly soft wood. And over time, the expansion and the contraction, the cork will often bind onto the insect pin and make it really, really difficult to take that specimen out without the pin vibrating a ton so you're able to actually pull it out. So with these, what you do instead of grabbing we'll get to these in a second because we were also talking about these the other day. Instead of grabbing the insect up here, like above the specimen with the pinhead, you will actually use these specific forceps to grab underneath the label as close to the foam as possible, and then pull them together, and then you can pull them out. This is a foam bottom unit tray, so there's really no resistance of me pulling that out. But sometimes it feels like you are quite literally like pulling teeth. And that was not just a fun segue. It does feel like that. But these were specifically sold for museum things. This is, the nice specific entomology supply thing. But our stash at work does say teeth pullers on it because we bought them from a dental supply store. It is just those like really big kind of pliers that they use at the dentist to take teeth. And that's what's historically been used to get those really tough pins out of that cork bottom. Liz, hello. How are you this evening? Or morning? I don't know what time it is for you. Evening for me. So that is the tour day equipment that we were going through. Glacial, I know you weren't here right at the beginning, so this is that specimen manipulator that we were talking about yesterday. So the one assembled out of Lego pieces, and you're able to rotate this around so you can see underneath the specimen and things like that. But it also has this little gear here in the middle that if I turn the handle on the right hand side here, it actually spins the specimen. So this is helpful to get the very specific angles that you need to see if there is just the one specimen. And I will take, like I said, I will take this one with me when I travel. Just in case people don't have the foam or the clay or whatever that I usually prefer to work with. They have a couple different versions of this as well. This is like the mid-size one. They do have one that's a little bit smaller, but then they also have larger ones for like photographing things. Because if you tried to put like a giant silk moth in here, you aren't going to be able to accommodate the body size. So they have them in like a couple of different iterations and designs to accommodate different sizes of specimens. But yeah, this thing is really neat. I am envious of the people that came up and designed this. But if I were to be using it really, really regularly, there are definitely a couple of changes that I would want to make. But for what it is right now and how often I use it, which is not very often, it's fine. So now, fade back on the scope. Yesterday we were going through and we were identifying all of the beetles that I needed for that project that I'm working on. They're up there. I'm not going to get them. But going through that Passamachus or that that big warrior beetle ID key, one of the couplets asked about specimens that were metallic green or not. So I finally went through a couple of stacks of drawers here in my lab room at home, and I found the green one that they were asking about. So this is Passamachus viridans. Viridans is, of course, from like the Latin viridis, meaning green. And these were some of my favorite beetles in Arizona. Just like a phenomenal look at that. It's green, right? So yesterday there was like a little bit of color around the edges of the pronotum and everything like that, and it was like very slightly blue. And the couplet asked if it was vivid metallic green. We knew it wasn't this species because this is so green. Oh, right. Yeah. I'll send pictures to Tort later. She said she would be at her meeting or her conference or whatever, so we'll excuse her this time. But yes, as you can imagine, this is certainly not what we were seeing yesterday. This is, you know, hyper green. Oh, turn the light off there. So yeah, excellent green edges on this one. Oh yeah, I can do bug eyed links. That's for sure. Let me make a note so I don't forget. P. Viridans bug guide link and photos. I don't have much to say about this one. Aside from it's green. Green only on the edges doesn't seem very useful. Yeah, that's a good question, Roach. I'm not really sure what they do with it because the other Passamachus, not the ones yesterday, but some of the I don't know why I'm trying to explain this when I have specimens right here. Let's see. Where's my elongatus? Here are my elongatus. Passamachus viridans, Passimachus. Viridans, Viridans. So this is another species in that genus, and it has much more of like a bluey purple edge on it. Not nearly as bright as you get with the viridans, but these ones also have the color just on the edges. And like I said, I don't really know why. They don't have the best eyesight, so I don't know that they're using it in any way to attract mates. It's also on both the males and the females. So I can't really explain why it's only on the edges. But it is, and some of the other ones in this group will have that bright coloring around the edges as well. There are some really purple species. Like this one, this is Subsulcatus. This one's from Florida. Not collected this time around. This one was given to me, but It is more Monster Energy green than Mountain Dew green, at least in my opinion. So yeah, this one's a native Florida one, and it's got a lot thicker of a blue band or a purple band on this one, and they do tend to lose a little bit of that coloration over time. That's punctilitis. But for whatever reason, the green holds up a lot better than the purples and the blues do. We can shuffle these back away. What else do we have in this drawer that might be interesting? So this drawer that I have right here next to me is the subfamily Scaratini, and these are the ones that have the snatched waist. I know you guys like these or have at least seen these before, um, but these are the ones that have that pretty skinny separation between the forebody. Scaratini, yeah. So this is my undetermined Scarites. These are the big-headed ground beetles, and they do have quite large heads. I'm getting too far away now. Zoom back in. There we go. But big heads, pretty big jaws on these ones. These ones are pretty common, but I think the fun diversity in this group is in like the really tiny ones. Um, so like these are also skeratines, same body form, but you can tell by uh, them being on points like how much smaller they are. So nice little guy. I thought I was going to work on these for my PhD for a while, and then that didn't end up working out, but that's okay. I've still got a pretty good little representation of them. A lot of these are also what I had been identifying for the for that project that I was telling you about, the one where I'm doing all the beetle IDs for that other museum. They had a lot of skeratines to go through, and I did almost a full drawer of these things. This one's fun. This is like another pretty common Eastern one, but this is Paraclavina bipustulatus. And if you remember, bi means two, and pustulatus or punctulatus usually refers to some sort of blotch of color on the wings. And as you can see here, there are like these two bright red spots on the tip of the abdomen. That's actual coloration. That's not like you seeing through the wings or anything like that. They are actually red like that. There's another one. Where's my Artistomus? Yeah, okay. So this red actually pops up a couple times in this group. This is a different genus, but this one a little bit different of a body form. It's a little bit longer, a little bit more round, but look how fierce and look how like skinny and sharp those mandibles are. Went too far. Yeah. So very, very skinny, very, very sharp mandibles. I actually don't know what these guys feed on. Um, they have fossorial front legs, so a lot of these are going to be digging in some capacity. And a lot of these smaller ones you find along riverbanks or along creek beds and things like that where it's wet, so they're able to tunnel pretty easily. But we don't have a lot of life history information on them to actually like know or figure out what they're doing. This is another one I really like. I will probably say that a lot about these things in this group. But this is Semi-Artistomus, also viridans. So we've just learned what that prefix or that that epithet means. Usually means green. And this one is green, has red legs, and is punctured and hairy. Let's see a little bit there. Let's see if we can get it back into frame a little bit better. You can see all those punctures and all those hairs kind of coming into focus now on the specimen. And these are pretty exciting. The loan that I have that I'm doing the IDs for, there were 75 of this species, but then only one of Semi-Artistomus puncticollis. And this is another one where this is another instance where learning the Latin is pretty helpful. So aside from, or I guess let's take a look at this one just real quick. It's also shiny green. It's also got red legs. But if you look at just the center of the pronotum, so going back to our favorite friend there, the middle of the pronotum has a bunch of punctures that have hairs in them. And the species name for this, puncticollis, collis is like collar or neck, and puncta is punctate or dotted like that. So the species name in this instance is actually very helpful for identification. Puncticollis is the one that has the punctures on the pronotum, while viridis, this one, the first one we looked at, that center of the pronotum is smooth and shiny. So there are hairs on the outside, but the hairs are not directly through the middle. And that's one of the things that separates these two. And this is another instance where I really get that in Pennsylvania. That's pretty cool. Another instance where you're going to run through so many of the common things before you find the rare one. And that's part of the problem. Like in the field, these things you can see here in the face cam how big they are. Ooh, that's blown to hell. Yeah, so you can see how big they are, or I guess I should say how small they are, and how separating those two in the field would be so tricky. So bringing them back, sitting them under the microscope, and actually getting eyes on them like this is the easiest way to actually figure out who and what you're looking at. Dirty specimen. We'll go with this one. So this is still, have I ever gotten my largest and smallest specimens out and shown them next to each other? What is my largest specimen? The answer is no. I probably haven't. I've definitely not done it on stream. If I have done it, Um, what would be my largest beetle? Eh, those longhorns from Thailand are pretty big. Um, we can we can look at the smallest one in a second here. Uh, Biggest, I would have to go do some digging. Um, I don't know that there's a good way to show them side by side and have them both be understood as to what they are. The small one, it'd be a lot easier to see under the scope, but then the big one would be like super, super out of frame. But yeah, I can pull the smallest one here in just a second. I know exactly where that one is, but the other one is still somewhere over in the unorganized drawers. But I do want to talk about these real quick before we do that. This is another Scaritine genus, so this is all, again, the same subfamily. These ones are interesting. This is the genus Schizogenius, is what the genus is called. And these ones have these really interesting longitudinal ridges on the head. Back out just the slightest bit to hopefully get that in focus for you guys. But they sort of look like cornrows. They've got these braids almost that are kind of going down the front of their head. And I think that's pretty cool. Do I know why they have them? No. That's a lot of the time. I don't really know why they have what's going on here. But yeah, these striations here. I think this is the one that we're looking at, yeah. That go down the top of the head. I always thought were very cool in this group. Um, and this is a group that I haven't worked on a ton. This is, again, up at the face cam here, this is all of my unidentified material. So I have a bunch of them. They're not uncommon. I just haven't gotten around to working through them yet. And then, one more cool Scaritine, and then we can look at the small stuff. These are the tribe Promechognathus, and these are from the West Coast. They also have some pretty gnarly looking mandibles. They've got these rather long heads, these very, very long falcate or like sickle shaped mandibles. So I've always thought these were really cool. I was very excited when friends brought these specimens in for me. These feed on millipedes. And there's a phenomenal paper from, I think, Jim Labonte in 1978 or something like that. It might have been in the early 80s, late 70s. That hey Beeger, hello. Where he talks about their hunting strategy of basically sneaking up behind. I'm sorry. Let me fix that for you. There's at least two saved. They apparently feed on like the cyanide producing millipedes too. So these things are pretty badass. And there was a paper that came out like last year that talks about how much cyanide they can take. So people used to use cyanide in kill jars to like collect insects, but that has faded out of favor because cyanide's super toxic to us. But there are millipedes that still produce like cyanic compounds. And so the science experiment was basically put these beetles in a container and see how much more cyanide they can take than these other things, because these feed on the millipedes that produce cyanide. So, in the paper from the 80s where they detailed the hunting strategy of this group, they basically crawl on top of the millipede and then put these crazy mandibles that they have. We're going to go back down to just one beetle. Everyone stay calm. So those mandibles, those are not like serrated teeth on the inside. Those are seedy on the palps underneath the mandibles. So they're not quite that badass. But they still have these really, really long mandibles that they crawl over top of the millipede, and then they basically just guillotine it. They take their mandibles and they apparently chomp it behind the head. And that's how they get to their that's how they get through their prey. Millipede shaped mouth. Yeah, exactly. Maybe a dumb question. It's never a dumb question, Afton. You're good. Um, yeah, I that's not a dumb question at all. That's actually a very good question and one that gets explained and answered a lot when you're working in this field. Um, some of it, tortilla, you made it. You made it. Um, I hope your conference was good. Um, so, Afton, the reason that we collect so many is that each record is a timestamp at a given site at a given time. So I have a bunch of these different specimens, but only a handful were collected at the same time. So I have that Passamac or the semi-artistomus. I have two from two different localities in Pennsylvania, two from Kansas, one from Missouri, and one from Florida. So you are not only getting the specimen, and part of it, like I was just explaining earlier, is that sometimes to identify what is different versus not, you need to have them under the microscope. And at that point, you keep them in the collection. You don't just throw them away. But it's a little record. So distributional records of telling you where and when and how people collect things. And sometimes big series do come from the same site. A lot of these Passamacus, this is Californicus, so one of the ones we were looking at yesterday. These are all from my master's project. So these were collected from just like a handful of sites. But it tells you it is my phrasing for this when I'm giving tours is that specimens are a snapshot of biodiversity at a certain place at a certain time. How they adapt to different places and evolve over time as well. Yes. So what I just said, the snapshot of biodiversity, the way that we look back at collections now, in like 50 years, people are going to want to look back and see like what was going on during 2025. So when we are looking back at things, oftentimes it's like, oh yeah, this was good habitat. I collected this like pretty rare beetle in this area. And then you look at it now and it's like a Walmart parking lot. And so the specimens, the records of these specimens tell us like, yes, historically this could have been found in this area. But now it's like not. And again, the same ways that we look back at these historical collections, people are going to want to look back and see how stuff is changing now, which is why, I maintain a collection so that one day eventually my stuff will go into a big museum and then all of that information will be available for everyone else to go through. And it's also good to have duplicates, especially in you just watch the VOD. That's funny. Especially in like research collections where people will ask for loans of specimens, so you can send them. You know, if we've got 100 of them, I can send you 50, but then we still have enough for our records in case someone else wants to look at it or something like that. If you need to destructively sample it, so do DNA or anything like that, you know, we can sacrifice a couple of specimens. If we only had one, and then you know you dropped it or whatever, that would just like not be good. So that's how collections get built, is really on the reference material, um, from all over the world. And you know there are species that are distributed all across the U.S. where you can collect them in like all 50 states, and it's good to have representation from as wide of a sampling thing as you can. Um, so when I'm out and I'm going to all of these different sites where I'll go collecting and whatnot, um, if it's somewhere that I've never collected before, I will grab every ground beetle that I can find. Because, at least for my personal collection, that is a new location record for that species. But then if I go back there and I see it again, I'm less likely to take more of them from that site because I already have the records. So in one collecting go, you can generally take what you need. And some people will go to the same spot and collect year after year after year. That's just not how I run it typically. Um, I don't know if Space Camp is here, but look away. I know you're not a fan of it. We got Peen on the screen. So this is a different species of Promechognathus. And this one, I will post a picture for this. Screen, this is crazy. I will post a picture of this in the Discord. Promechognathus. So I had to dissect these because the characters externally to separate these two species are not that strong, but the genitalia is pretty obvious. This is probably the best dissection that I've ever done. It looks one to one with the illustration in the paper, and I was very proud of it. So I like split photoshopped it so the picture from the paper is on the left hand side and the actual picture from the beetle is on the right hand side. I think it's very funny seeing them side by side, but it's remarkable how close it is to the actual picture. So I thought that was a very funny one. Tortilla, you're here now, and you can go back and watch the VOD, but I also just have them right here. So I will pull this out real quick. This is our bright green Passamacus. We definitely did not have this species yesterday. Espresso martini plants? Oh no. I missed that. Well, don't look. Don't look then. It is a very good green, Roxers. I green is my favorite color, and that is a very excellent shade of green. So I do like that species a lot. Okay. What did I say next? The smallest specimen. Yes, that'll be the good one. Okay. What can I offer you? Look at a bunch of pinheads. I'm gonna run to the restroom, and I then will grab the smallest specimen that I have. Ooh. Okay, we're back. What up? Bokeh. What is bokeh? Oh, interesting. I did not know that. We learn all kinds of stuff on this stream. So, Roach asked if I had ever put my largest and my smallest specimens next to each other to have that like cool size comparison. And I haven't. As far as I know, at least I definitely know I haven't done it on stream. Um, I I would have to think or at least go through a couple more drawers to figure out what my largest specimen was. But my smallest one, I am 100% sure I know exactly what it is. And I shall share that with you now. Let's grab this out here. Really need to set my Fractal. What's up? Welcome in. We are just about to look at a tiny, tiny beetle. Um, da da da. Here it is. Oh no. How do I deal with the camera? Do you see it, chat? Do you see? if I put it back up onto the label, there's almost no shot that you're able to find it. So let's start out. Okay, we're good. We're at point 0.7. Oop. Ta-da! So there it is, chat. Right there on the end of the point. This is at 0.7, so this is the low or the least amount of magnification that we can offer on this one. This beetle is about 0.5 millimeter long. So it is the smallest one that I have ever collected. The only beetles smaller than this are some of the featherwing beetles, and they are down to like 0.3 of a millimeter. So, like 2/3 the size of this one, which is remarkably small already. Roxers, phenomenal guess. It used to be. So this is another fun thing for you. This is probably like the worst beetle name. This little one that we're looking at right now is the family Acalyptoischiidae. Which I think is just like a horrendous spelling of a name. These used to be in Latrodeids, which is the family that includes like most of your grain pests. So very impressive that you actually picked that out if it was just a silhouette type thing. But no, these got split off. They were grain beetles. They do a very similar thing. These are in like pine litter, and they feed on the molds and the fungus and stuff growing on the decaying pine needles. Kelsey, great question. Um, you're not going to find this in the field. Even knowing that you have one, it not being on like a white or a clear background. Excuse me. There's like no way you would see this. So what we did to get this one was a technique called litter sifting. We have this big mesh sifter that you throw a bunch of leaf litter in, and then you shake it. And what that does is it knocks all of the small stuff, including all the beetles and things like that, down into a pillowcase sort of thing, and it keeps the big sticks and rocks and stuff out. You do that all day around a field site, you combine it all, and then you bring it back to the lab and run it through a Berlazy funnel, which is a just like a funnel with some screen or mesh on top of it to hold the stuff, and then you put a light on top of obviously not directly on it, but like above the dirt that you have now put in this funnel. And the idea is all of the stuff in there is going to be like soil and leaf litter insects. And what they want most is to be dark and to be wet. So putting the light on top of them drives them away phototactically. So they're getting this bright light shown on top of them. They're going, oh no, I'm out from under my leaf litter cover. I better dig down. But then the light over time also dries the soil from the top down. And what that does, in addition to the light, it dries the soil from the top down. And so they crawl down and have less and less and less wet and like damp soil to live in. And eventually they will crawl out the bottom of the soil, fall down into the funnel, and then get collected in a little cup. So you can scoop leaf litter and you can run dozens of these funnels and you could not find the thing that you're looking for. We got lucky on these ones. We got a pretty big series when we collected them. But yeah, this sort of stuff you don't know in the field. And that's a lot of entomology is like, yeah, you can run lights where you will actively like be able to pick and choose what you're taking. But to get a lot of this small stuff and to get truthfully a lot of the really rare stuff, you have to get lucky and you have to put in a lot of legwork to set and run and sort traps. Um, I know people that will set like 300-mile loops of pitfall traps where they'll go take a subset, set a trap, drive like 30 miles, get out, set some more, drive like 30 more miles. And they do this big loop going through a bunch of different habitats and stuff like that. But then they have to go back and service them every couple of weeks. So there's a guy in Arizona that has been doing the same southern Arizona route and like slightly changing the trap settings for like 10 years. And he just has every month he will go and do this big loop and, go pick up traps. And he has a ton of stuff. Has collected a bunch of new species from these habitats. So a lot of it is getting lucky and figuring out how to collect the specific things that you're after. So let's zoom it in again, check a little bit. That didn't help at all. Let's just go all the way in. There he is. In all his glory. So yeah, this is my smallest specimen, by quite a ways. And even comparing them to like, I don't know what's like a good. Oh, that's a normal sized beetle. That's something that everybody should have size reference for. So there's that beetle, and here I am putting it next to a ladybug. Just because I feel like everybody probably has a size reference for a ladybug. This is like, a normal size one. This is not a big species or anything like that. So there they are, side by side. That, like I said, that is like an average size ladybug next to that guy, and that thing is, maybe one of the tarsi, maybe an antennal segment or so, but super small. Is Roach even here? Roach asked about this. Oh well, if they're not, they can watch the VOD. But yeah, so that's the smallest specimen. I will have to think about whatever my smaller than a springtail glacial. Well, smaller than some springtails at least. What is a good? I don't know what like a good reference thing is here. Um, for those of you that know like roughly what size an insect pin is, Here's the point of an insect pin next to the beetle. And then the pin head. The pin head is bigger, like by far. So it is hard to like think about what this means, like how big this beetle is, or I guess how small this beetle is. Um, but yeah, that's my smallest one. And you guys are getting a jump start on your beetle identification knowledge. So like what we do on Wednesdays, the pre chat chats. Um, we are this week we are going to finish the first drawer of my 4-drawer synoptic collection. This one is in the second drawer, so it's not going to be too long before we get to this group. But you have now seen it a little bit early compared to what everyone else is going to get a look at. I thought for the next 8 o'clock already. I don't know how long we're gonna go, but we're gonna do at least one more fun thing. Um, this is, and I maybe this isn't the stream to do this in because I titled it "Beetles, Beetles, and More Beetles." Um, what if by chance we did some not beetles? How do we feel about that? Other insects that are not beetles. Whoa. The only reason I say that is as I was looking for the Viridens, the big green ones, I had to go to the bottom of a stack, and the drawer that was on top of that one just so happened to be one of my drawers of non beetles. So let's. Okay. Well, I lied. There are some beetles in this drawer. Oopsies. Who do we want to see? Oh, would you guys like to see the world's largest something? This will be a fun one. Yeah, okay, cool. So, this and we've taken a look at this guy already before at some point. No shot we're getting this under the microscope, so we're gonna switch to full face cam. Laptop camera. Get big. Okay. So we've looked at this guy before. This is our cicada. Get up a little higher there. Okay, cool. So this is your like average cicada here in the US. Size wise, this guy is Femto. Hello. From the front to the back of the wings, about an inch and a half. For all of you metrics out there, it's about 4.5 centimeters. Now, this one was collected here in Florida. Are you ready for this? This is the world's largest cicada that was collected in Thailand. Come on, camera, please work with me. Let me turn down. There we go. Okay. So, side by side, pretty nuts. So this one, head to wingtip, is 3.5 inches, which is about 9 centimeters. So basically 3 times the size, or double. About double the size. It would make a cicada killer very happy. This would produce the biggest cicada killer in the world. Yeah, look at that thing. They were super loud. There's quite a few things in this box that I got last year in Thailand. We did have permits for everything, so all above board and whatnot. But a lot of the groups that I generally don't care about, um, there are cool ones, not in the U.S. So I did collect some non beetle things. Okay, Roxers, we'll see you. What else would be a good one in here? Yeah, Mini Pro, absolutely. Those ones, yeah, they came into the lights. They were at night, and they were so loud. It was really incredible. Um, Here we also have. Whoa! World Bird Sanctuary. What is up? Welcome in, everybody. Hello, hello. The bug song words in the general chat. Okay. Thanks, Femto. We'll check that in a minute. You guys going from bugs or birds to bugs? And we've got some cool stuff. Right now, we are deciding to check out some non beetle uh, insects, which is odd for this stream because we do a lot of beetle collecting here. So these were some of my favorites as well that we found on that trip. These are the earwigs. Oh, your owl stream. Do I have any owl themed bugs? Not readily available. There are owl flies though. So owl flies are a thing. I just do not have any uh, right here and ready. But thank you for the raid. Very much appreciated. Earwigs are one of my side groups. We've talked about them before, and I know I've mentioned that I like them before. But these are not your mother's earwigs. Just wait as we reveal more and more of these pictures. Look at that. They get pretty crazy over there as well. Fancies, yeah. Let's see. Where's another good one? This is another good one. Starneff, hello. Welcome back. Welcome in. These ones, the back of the abdomen has fallen off just a little bit. So I'm going to have to fix that here after stream. But this one is actually bidentate. So it has a second, like this second set of teeth right there at the base that it allows extra leverage and extra grip as they are, as they're fighting or tending to their eggs, which is what they tend to use their forceps for. Hawk Raptor, how would you fix it? Good old fashioned Elmer's glue. um, yeah, there's really not a big secret to it. Um, the finesse really comes from being able to pick up the pieces that have fallen off to reattach it, but actually reattaching it is not that difficult. The reason we use Elmer's is if for whatever reason during the fix, we're in ads. We shall wait. Give it 10 seconds and then we'll check it. Afton, yeah, you do. Afton loves Elmer's glue. All right, welcome back, everybody. I stopped it while the ads were running, so hopefully you didn't miss too much of that. Hawk asked how I would fix this and how we go about fixing insect specimens, and the answer is Elmer's glue. Hello, cat. Thank you. Ooh, W Beetles. Yes, I agree. Except we're cheating right now. I know the stream says Beetles, but we're looking at some non-Beetles right now, which is a bad stream title. Um, Elmer's glue is washable with water. And so if we were to mess up and like overindulge in using the glue and maybe gum up some of the underside, cover up characters that we would need to see, Elmer's is really nice because you're able to wash it off. How do I... Can I edit that? Oh, I can edit that. I've never changed my title midstream. So that should have worked. Yeah. Now we're not lying. So we use Elmer's because it's washable. So if we do accidentally cover up something that we need to see, it's very easy to wash it off and clean that. The problem with Elmer's is that in areas with very high humidity, occasionally the humidity in the air is enough to soften the glue and things start to fall off of the points or your fixes start to fall down. There are glues out there that um, are that are alcohol soluble, so you can wash them off with alcohol rather than just water. And those are nice because just general humidity doesn't cause the glue to sag, but there are other complications with those, in that the glues are generally a little bit harsher on DNA than Elmer's glue is. Um, Glue, if you can imagine, is a very hotly debated topic in the insect world. Um, it might sound like a joke that I'm saying that. It's not. We have a meeting every year called ECN, the Entomological Collections Network meeting, and it meets alongside the Entomological Society of America meeting. But the Collections Network one is specifically focused on people who work in collections. And so oftentimes that conference highlights, excuse me, jeez, sleepy tonight. I don't know how much longer we're going to last. Um, we'll highlight new curatorial problems, suppliers, methods of doing things. That little 3D printed pinning block that I had earlier came from a design that I got from one of the ECN meetings. Um, but one of my fondest memories uh, from going to conferences was that ECN in 2017, which would have been in Denver, there was a whole symposium, like multiple different talks about glue. And it's such a small thing, but the more you talk to people, the more you realize how particular everybody is with it. One of the other things that I keep in my little travel museum kit is one of these little tiny bottles of Elmer's glue. And so it's a good general purpose thing, but uh it's not fully acid free, so like over long periods of time sometimes it can have weird interactions with chemicals that were in the specimen or some of the materials that we use to prepare them. um, Humidity is a problem. When I lived in Florida last time, um, the dehumidifier at the department went out, and some of the specimens that I had on Elmer's glue points sagged off and were just like sitting at the bottom of the tray. And so then for a while, I switched to one of the alcohol soluble glues because Beeger, this is an earwig butt. These are fancy earwig pinctures from Thailand. Um, so anyway, after that, I switched to an alcohol soluble glue for a long time, but then it was very it got pretty expensive, and then the company that was selling it went out of business. So there's actually nowhere to get that glue anymore. Um, and for the last 5 years, I've been living in Arizona. Humidity is not a problem in Arizona. So tired today, guys. Probably gonna call it in. We'll go another 15 minutes or so. We'll go to 2 hours. But yeah, humidity is not really a problem in Arizona. So for the last couple years, I've been using Elmer's glue. Well, now that I'm back in Florida, I am worried about some of my collection stuff. So I have a dehumidifier up here in the collections room. I don't mind the humidity so much myself, but the specimens definitely don't like it. So I do have a dehumidifier that I run in here when stream's not going. It does make some noise. So trying to deal with it that way, but people use all kinds of glues. For a long time, the gold standard, the thing that everybody used was, um, let me get it right, Martha Stewart extra tacky acid free craft glue. Any crossover between insect preservation and art conservation comes to adhesive, since they also need acid-free properties. I think we probably don't do a lot of crossover there. Truthfully, I don't know. That's a very good question, actually, and we have a conservationist, uh, like a document conservationist, like an archivist at work that I can talk to. But I think the problem with a lot of the things that they use to do like art and paper conservation, it's acid free, but it does weird stuff to available DNA. Now, not every specimen in a museum is going to be DNA grade material, but that is something that looking forward, we are trying to maximize the availability. Historically, people would keep them in all kinds of nasty chemicals that degrade the DNA, kind of break it up where it's no longer useful. Um, and now we know better, right? Like we know that DNA exists, and we know that we can get it out of museum specimens. Just not all museum specimens. They're not all DNA grade a lot of the time because of historical practices and things that have happened like way before we even knew that we might want to do this someday. So now we try and maximize or I guess minimize the destructive chemicals and things like that that get used on the insects. The kill jars and the stuff we use now, the ethyl acetate, is generally not a long-term harmful thing. So we're able to still use it to collect the specimens, but as long as they're not stored in it long term, it's generally okay. Um, and so we do the best things now that we can to preserve things where we could get DNA out of them, but then um, we don't know what the future technology is going to be. There are people that are still working in this field now who remember like when we first started sequencing DNA for the insects. Um, so we're trying to minimize impact as much as possible because we don't know what other stuff we could accidentally be messing up, right? We're doing our best to make sure everything stays as whole and intact as possible and degrades as little as possible because there are technologies coming, I'm sure, that we don't even think about right now. So always a good thing to monitor that. Um, let's change directions again here. This is far from the usual content because I don't work on this group. People like it. Ooh. Ah. Let's move it up to get the fancy butt in frame. There we go. So this is a scarlet-bodied wasp moth. It is not a wasp. It is a moth. So they throw a bunch of adjectives together like that. This is um, a type of moth, obviously, that you can see that has clear wings. This is pretty abnormal. Um, right now you're over here. If we zoom in on this portion of the wing, you do still see scales, and that is like the hallmark of butterflies and moths. That is the order Lepidoptera, which means scale wing. But these membranes in the middle are actually clear. This is where um, this is like how thin the exoskeleton is, but when it's not covered by scales. So you probably just saw that happen in the back, but keep looking right there at the wing. And you can see now my pin just behind the wing. So clear wings are pretty neat. People like these a lot. Um, but the other thing, a lot of these ones, a lot of things in this family are uh, bee or wasp mimics, which is why this one is called the scarlet-bodied wasp moth, even though it doesn't do much to look like a wasp. A lot of the other things in this group are variously colored yellow and black to kind of mimic wasps. Um, and again, as the name suggests, scarlet bodied, so obviously very, very bright red. This one, I collected this last April, just outside of Orlando. These are not that rare, but we didn't have them in Arizona. And so I was visiting friends last year, and I, of course, had to set up my bug light in their backyard. And we got this. And it was quite exciting for me, even though, I don't really work with moths that much. And in fact, I generally don't like them that much. But we get some really neat, we can get some really neat detail here. You have the eye, obviously, which we've seen compound eyes before. But all of this, um, right here, we were talking about gunk yesterday and just like stuff on specimens. All of this is pollen. So you can see how I'm actually scraping a couple of those granules off with the head of the pin here. But all of that is pollen that it got lost in the sauce before it got collected. And then over here on the other side, you can see that nice little coiled proboscis. Oh, my camera's blocking that. My bad. Scoot it over, and then let's zoom down a little bit. Oh hell yeah, Roxers! Uh, this was in this mystery box of non-Beetles, so I just decided to pull it out because it is a stunner. I mean, I cannot deny that. You could do studies on the pollen. Yes, 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 yes. Another reason to potentially collect several of the same species. Absolutely, Kelsey. Um, People will do pollen studies because you can DNA sequence the pollen, but pollen is also pretty specific if you are a flower person. Pollen looks the same to me, but apparently like the microstructures on the pollen granules is pretty diagnostic, so you can match pollen to certain species of flower without doing DNA work to see like what this moth was pollinating. Do insects feel when they get stuff like pollen on their eyes? Um, they probably notice it. Uh, so they can't blink or anything like that. Kelsey, that's the best kind. And then you have the one thing that you know a lot about, which is birds. Um, so Starneff, they can probably see it and they probably know it's there because it would be blocking their vision in some aspects. And so a lot of the time, flies are probably the most well known for doing this. Where they plot their evil little scheme and then they kind of just go up and wipe their heads. Um, Other insects will do that as well. So these moths can reach their eyes with their front legs, that they would be able to like scrape that off if if it was bothering them that much. A cool thing that we've never really talked about on ground beetles is that they have like a little notch on their forearm that's full of little hairs, and it's their antennal cleaner. So they will actually like run their antenna through that little notch on their arm to clean whatever dirt and debris is on the antenna. But here, these guys, it probably the pollen wasn't probably bothering it that much. There's not a ton on the eyes. It's kind of under the head, and I got this one at night, which is actually kind of odd because if you are mimicking a wasp, wasps are typically out during the day, and the night creatures are not as familiar with the like warning signs and warning colorations of wasps. So I think this one just would have had to have been nearby, and my light woke it up. um, sometimes I will also get dragonflies at the lights, and those are also a mostly diurnal creature. Um, and so if they wake up with the lights, they will come to them. And so I bet this moth just got a little bit disoriented from the light, and that's probably why it was maybe a little bit dirty. Hadn't fully cleaned off yet because it was either resting and then got pollen or went to bed. But yeah, not a terribly effective mimicry strategy if you're awake at night and the thing that you're trying to mimic is out during the day. That doesn't exactly help the back and forth. There were a ton of dragonflies when I went out watering, catching the bugs. Yeah, you'll see that a lot. It people will call it hawking. I don't know if it's actually like that. That's like an official term or anything like that. But they will go over these bodies of water at like dusk and dawn because that's when a lot of the other insects are either starting to fly or coming back from flying. And so they'll go out at dusk, but then usually once it's dark, they will roost. Um, Most dragonflies, they'll just post up like on a tree or a branch or whatever and kind of dangle there for the evening. Um, but yeah, occasionally the lights will wake them up. Another cool detail that we can take a look at here, and this I think will probably be our last specimen unless there's something real good in the box that I'm not seeing right now. But we're gonna get a real nice close up on the antenna. And so each of those little structures off to the side is actually paired. So maybe it'll be a little bit easier to see on this side, just with how the antenna is oriented. But there's like the solid midrib of the antenna, and then off to each side it is pectinate. So it has these little pieces coming off of each side of the antennal segment. So in this way, it's sort of like every segment of Hank's body, he has two pairs of legs. This is sort of like a centipede equivalent. Each segment has like one little thing off of each side, so it sort of looks like a pair of legs. They were attached face to face. That's not normal. Whenever they're attached like that, they're usually butt to butt. But yeah, the structure of the antenna is very cool. And then there is also some very nice blue on this specimen as well. The scarlet, the bright red gets a lot of the credit here, but there are some other very, very cool highlights like that. Yeah, snake skeleton. That's a really good way to think about it. So it's mostly red. but it's got these clear wings. It's got these little flecks of blue. But then underneath, let's reveal and end on a surprise. There's also a spot of white. So lots of very cool coloration on this moth, and all of that color is coming from scales. So on the wings, you could see how that detail worked, and over here on the leg, for instance, you can see that little bare patch. It's where these scales came up and got rubbed off in some way. But all of the color, and or I guess most of the coloring on Lepidoptera in general, comes from these hairs that are modified to being like flat and wide, like a fish scale. So if you've ever picked up a butterfly or a moth, um, and you've gotten that like dust on your fingers, that dust is the scales that are coming off of the body because they have scale coverings all over the body, not just the wings. So that'll be our last specimen for tonight. I'm going to raid you guys into Shruti and Lucas here in just a second. Um, last question. Form of counter shading. You know, start off. I don't know. Um, I wouldn't think so because it's just like two spots on the side of the abdomen. What I think it probably more likely is that whatever species of wasp this thing is trying to mimic, it probably has white spots or some light patch there on the body. So I think it would probably be uh, something to do with that instead, but I really don't know. I will look into it. Scarlet wasp moth mimic. All right, y'all. Well, thank you as always for hanging out. This was a fun one. Um, I will see you all again on Wednesdays for pre-chat chats. We'll look at more beetle stuff, look at more beetle families, and you guys got a sneak peek on that Acalyptoaceae. But um, yeah, thanks for hanging out. If you're not in it already, check out the Discord. Exclamation point bug cord or exclamation point Discord will both take you there. And there's a channel to select a role if you would like to be notified about the start of these streams. Otherwise, it's a very buggy place, and lots of people can hang out and post cool stuff and identify things for you there. So, if you haven't already, check that out, and I will see you back here on Wednesday evening. I'll send you guys over to Shruti, and I will join you there in just a little bit. Night, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.